What's going on, guys? It's your boy Big Dylan and welcome back to another Destiny video. In today's video I'm actually going to be doing my Hunter builds guide for the builds that I use for the raids, heroic strikes, nightfalls, story missions, stuff like that. I've done two videos before this, one for the Titan and one for the Warlock. The only class left to do is the Hunter. So without further ado, let's just get straight into it. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go over a raid build, okay? Now the raid I'm going to use as an example for this, because this is the only raid that I have to actually switch subclass for, and it's the raid that I switch weapons the most for, and that is going to be Crota's End. Might sound a little bit unusual that I switched most for that raid, but I'm going to explain it as I go along. So when the raid starts, the first subclass I end up using is a Nightstalker. Now Nightstalker is by far the best Hunter subclass when it comes to PvE. Gives you and your teammates a damage buff. Amazing subclass, creates orbs for them, all your teammates as well, so they can get their supers faster. Definitely by far the best subclass. Just quickly show you my build that I like to run real quick. Now weapons that I'll usually run with this build, for the first section, for the lamps, I'll use my Margot Loop, which is the Fatebringer roll, Icebreaker, so I can turn around, body shot a thrall, watch it explode and blow all the other ones up as well. And then a Haze and Vengeance just for a rocket launcher just in case. Once I've done the lamp section and we're to the bridge, I will actually swap it out for my Ex Machina sniper rifle with the Raise Lighter exotic sword. Pretty self-explanatory in this one, very easily kills the sword bearer with the exotic sword, and then we also need it for the Death Singer. For the Death Singer, I actually run the exact same build what you're seeing right now, just use my Nightstalker with the exact same weapons on here. Mainly for killing the knights for the challenge mode. Obviously when you're doing that you need to be on your feet and killing everything very quickly, so that is the reason for the Raise Lighter. Then for Crota, I'll switch to Gjallarhorn, mainly because obviously Gjallarhorn is by far one of the best weapons for downing Crota, at least in my opinion. And then I have to actually switch to Golden Gun, mainly for Crota. I'll actually change a few of my perks up here and there, and I'll actually run the Celestial Nighthawk. Now, the reason for this is because the Oversoul that spawns when you down Crota, I'll actually take the Oversoul out with my Golden Gun with my Celestial Nighthawk. It kills it in one shot, makes my teammates be able to focus on downing Crota rather than actually having to shoot the Oversoul, which is just really nice. It makes it more comfortable, and you know, just the raid seems to run a lot more smoothly when you do have someone running Golden Gun with a Celestial Nighthawk in the Crota's End raid. But that's just an example for one of the raids. For all of the other raids, I just use Nightstalker through the entire thing. I don't ever switch off of any of my subclasses. Weapons, again, pretty self-explanatory for all the raids. If you want any other detailed, raid weapon guides or anything like that, there is some other very good channels out there, like Datto Does Destiny. I know he has really good raid guides out there right now for, what weapons you should be using, which ones deal the most damage for certain boss fights. So definitely go check out his videos if you want in detailed weapons that you should be using. So like I said, I've got my raid build out of the way. I just wanted to sort of use Crota's End as an example. Now we're actually going to be getting into why I use Nightstalker, what do I use it for other than raids, okay? Now Nightstalker for me is my go-to subclass. Whenever there's an activity, I'll always try and use Nightstalker first. Now the only other time, pretty much like Titan, that I will switch off of my main subclass that I like to use, I will only use Bladedancer if Arc Burn is on, and I will only use Golden Gun if Solar Burn is on or Airborne is on, okay? So we're just going to go through them step by step. I'm going to break them down as to why I use certain things. So for my Nightstalker, I like to use spike grenades just because I like to place them above doorways. I feel like they have a little bit more utility, and I like that. They're a little bit more comfortable to use for me. Void walls, more of a PvP thing for me. Vortex grenades, I just think they're pretty bad grenades. I think they could do with a damage buff, or at least an area of effect buff. That's my opinion, but that's just the way I look at them. As for the jump, I prefer better control, mainly because I'm using Bones of AO. The only other time I will switch to something like triple jump is if I'm trying to glitch somewhere. I'm trying to do like a really crazy jump to try and get up high for a vantage point. That's the only other time I'll ever really seem to switch. As far as the super goes, I actually use Black Hole. This is pretty self-explanatory. Has increased range, it lasts longer, and it can tether more targets. Clearly, it is the go-to choice for PvE. It's just, shoot one, tether off. It's a lot easier to use than Quither. I know a lot of people seem to think Quither is better for PvE, mainly because you can shoot 3, but the actual tag radius that they can actually, pull enemies from just isn't as great as the black hole. So that's definitely the reason as to why I use that. As far as Bloodbound, this is pretty decent, but for me, from the experience I've had, when I'm playing strikes solo, by myself, and my other teammates, like, it's very hard to sort of coordinate with, just random people that you get matched with as to when you're going to shoot your tether for them to kill them all quickly enough. And I feel like your tether disappears, way before you've even sort of started to kill all of the enemies. So it's more of like a team thing that for me, if I was, with loads of other people and I was playing with a team, maybe I'd swap out to Bloodbound just so we can kill the enemies quicker. But when you're matching with random people, like I said, it can be a little bit hectic at times. As far as the smoke grenade, I prefer Vanishing Smoke, mainly just for obviously staying alive. If I need to get a revive, if one of my teammates happen to go down in a raid or a nightfall, or if I maybe get one shot, throw the smoke grenade at my feet and then I'll go invisible for a few seconds, which is also very, very nice. Light of the pack, again, killing tethered targets creates orbs of light for your teammate. This is definitely going to be one of the best things about the actual Nightstalker subclass. Being able to, give you your teammates and supers faster is just definitely one of the best benefits of using this class. And then I use Predator. I know a lot of people seem to use Shade Step in PvE. For me, I don't need it. For PvE, a lot of the enemies, you don't need to be strafing and Shade Stepping all over the place and trying to juke the enemies. It doesn't work like that for me in PvE. It's easy enough to survive, and I prefer the extra shadow shot cooldown. And also, if I happen to shoot my tether too early, it'll just wait there on the floor or stick to the surface and wait for the enemies to spawn anyway. So it's just a little bit more safer in that sense as well. So that's the reason as to why I go with Predator. So as far as actual exotics that I use with this subclass, again, Bones of Ao for me definitely one of the best options because I prefer the increased movement speed. I like to do activities as fast as I possibly can. I don't really like to waste time. And that's pretty much it for the exotics. I don't ever really switch out of Bones of Ao when I use Nightstalker. I think all the other ones are sort of completely irrelevant. You could say having an extra smoke grenade is pretty decent, but for me, I just don't need it. So that's pretty much it for my Nightstalker. That's, weapons will change varying on the activity I am doing, whether it's, a certain burn or whether it's just, something casual like in patrol. I'll use whatever weapons are suitable for the activity I am doing. So the next subclass we're going to go over is Gunslinger. Now, I do like a bit of Golden Gun every now and then, but for me, I only ever seem to touch Golden Gun when Solo Burn is on or the Airborne modifier is on. As I'm actually making this video, I think the Heroic Strike modifiers are actually Airborne and Specialist. Now, Celestial Nighthawk is by far one of the best exotics for Golden Gun if you know how to use it. Definitely recommend giving it a shot if you've never tried it before. Now the main reason I prefer using Golden Gun with Celestial, especially when Solar Burn or Airborne is on, is because of how much damage it deals in one shot. It can take sometimes like a third of the the boss's health off at the end of a strike. It's just an all-round great exotic to use, and Golden Gun is actually a pretty decent subclass. At times, if I'm running strikes and Celestial Nighthawk, it sort of makes it so you can't use your super until the very end of the strike when you actually get to the boss. I'll actually switch out to the Symbiote. Now, I don't actually have mine fully leveled up. I think my proper one's in the vault, unfortunately. But I'll just use this helmet throughout the strike just so I can get 4 shots off, and I'll actually slap something like Combustion on instead of Deadeye, mainly just so I can actually kill a lot of adds. If I'm focusing on ad control on certain things. In general, it just seems to work out a little bit better. But yeah, as far as things go, that's the only 2 exotics I will ever use when it comes to Golden Gun for PvE. Weapons, again, the main only times, like I said, when I use my Golden Gun is when Solar Burn's on, so I'd usually use Solar Burn weapons. For example, Galahorn and my Solar Burn LDR. would be a perfect example. Maybe you've got some of the new adept raid weapons, so you might use Vision of Confluence as your primary slot instead. And that's pretty much it. For Golden Gun, there's not a lot else to it. This is usually what I would go with. And yeah, I think I've actually got a build guide video on the Golden Gun Celestial Nighthawk with the Scavenger, Gambler's Dagger and Knife Juggler build. It's actually a hell of a lot of fun. Definitely go try and check that out on my channel if you have the time. But let's move on to Bladedancer. So for Bladedancer, I don't ever actually really seem to use it. Even when Arcburn is on, I never use Bladedancer. The subclass I always opt for when Arcburn is on is Nightstalker, and that is just my go-to for Arcburn. I feel like Bladedancer is by far the worst subclass on a hunter, at least for PvE. It's just the utility of the subclass is just really bad. Obviously, like I said, hunters are really squishy your characters to begin with, and when you are trying to run towards a huge pack of enemies and try and melee them to death, I just feel like Bladedancer just isn't a really safe option to be going with. I know throughout year one for all of my activities I used Golden Gun. I never really touched Bladedancer as well. Bladedancer for me, it's a Crucible subclass and a Crucible subclass only. I think the only other time I would ever use a Bladedancer if I was doing some sort of like an invisible build where I was trying to maybe go through the lamp section on the Crota's and raid. Maybe you want to just go invisible all the time and say screw your teammates and just run off to the lamps on your own, but that's pretty much the only other time I can warrant using Blade. I just don't really see it as a PvE subclass. In my opinion, I just don't think it's really good enough. The benefits that it gives you just aren't too great. Like I said, Nightstalker by far the go-to subclass for me for Arcburn. So like I said guys, that's the builds I like to use for my hunter, whether I'm doing strikes, raids, all that sort of stuff. Nightstalker is always my go-to raid subclass unless I'm doing Crota's End and I switch to Celestial Nighthawk for the Oversoul. All the other raids, Nightstalker all the way through, by far the best option in my opinion. For strikes, it will depend on the modifiers for me, although I never touch Blade unless I'm doing Crucible. Nightstalker for Arcburn and Voidburn, and the Golden Gun for Solar Burn in my opinion. But that's pretty much it. That is all my builds. Hopefully this sort of gives you an insight onto how I actually play my hunter. I have made a Warlock version of this and a Titan version. The Warlock version has a lot more information as towards perks for armors. If you would like to know why I like to try and get certain perks on certain armors, like for example for my helmet, if you want to know why I like to have Ashes to Assets or Better Already on my helmets, or say if I wanted Second Thoughts on it, if you want to know all that sort of information as to why I have certain perks, definitely go check out the Warlock video, as I think the last 10 to 15 minutes of that video is me going over all of the perks on my armor pieces and why I have them, and it pretty much goes over all three of the characters in the game. So if that is some more of information that you would like to know, please definitely go check out the video. I'll try and leave a link in the description if I remember. But thank you so much for watching. Drop a like on the video if you enjoyed, subscribe to the channel for future Destiny content. Thank you so much for watching, and peace.